Following video is brought to you by BSEN, Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and as always, leave a comment, and thank you for enjoying the video.
I got the Boston Celtics going to the Final Four.
I got them winning without.
It's time to represent your city. Put your hands up. Colin, you know we do it for Boston. Hey, ain't nobody gonna like Boston. Yeah, hey, ain't nobody do it like Boston. Where the legends get made, where the banners get raised, bright lights, big stage. Boston. All the fire we bring in a city full of rings, it's a beautiful thing out in Boston. And you ain't hard like that. You don't put it on the line with your squad like that. That's right, Boston. All we do is win like cigars in the gym, and we at it again to say, Beantown, what's up? What's up? 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 Feel the energy shift, now we jumping at the gym. Represent, showing out how we ball above the rim. Larry Legend, 86, to the truth in 08. Cement your name with the all-time greats. Still banner 18 in the Raptors. Celtic green, only green that matters. It's about that time. Ain't another city that's louder than mine. Always gonna shine with the game on the line. What you think was gonna happen, man? That's how we do it in Boston. Ain't nobody gonna like Boston. Yeah. Ain't nobody do it like Boston.
All right. Welcome back to Dynasty Proud, episode 9, brought to you by BSEN. Alex, what's going on?
How's it going, Jason?
Good. How are you? All right. So we have a lot to talk about. Obviously, the All-Star break just happened, the All-Star game. But I want to look to the 2 games before the All-Star break against Brooklyn. We took care of them pretty easily. Do you have any thoughts on those 2 games?
I mean, I'm just glad they took them seriously, just historically speaking, a lot of times playing down to the level of competition. You had All-Star weekend coming up, a vacation for a lot of these guys that, mentally they weren't already in Cabo, like Doc Rivers said the Bucks were beforehand, seeing them lose to the G League and two-way squad Grizzlies. So especially the second game in Boston, it's like that's a game where they could have just, dicked around and found themselves in a dogfight in the end. Instead, they just put their foot on their throats in the first quarter and just never let up and won by 50. So, I mean, that was good to see that they just took it seriously, took care of business, and, got to go into the All-Star break on a high.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when you look at the Brooklyn Nets, obviously they just fired their head coach a couple of days ago, right? They canned him after Kyrie wanted Atkinson gone. They brought in Vaughn, and then things just haven't been going their way. Apparently, there was a report that Ben Simmons, that Vaughn wanted Ben Simmons to be like the focal point of their offense, and all their players are like, "What are you doing?" Like Simmons barely plays; it's not even that good, and so they're kind of a mess right now. So obviously, you got to take care of business. But going into, the first half of the Celtics season, I think we both can agree it was phenomenal. Obviously, KP coming in is a huge difference maker. Drew Holiday kind of brings that defensive, toughness that the Celtics were going to miss with Marcus Smart. So who is your first half of the season for the Celtics? Who's the MVP in your eyes?
I mean, I think you have to give it to Tatum. He's just been the best all-around player. He's the most consistent every single night. He's putting up big numbers, and he's doing it on a team that is stacked, that has, 4 other players that could be all-stars in any other year. So I think he's been unselfish. He's been making the right play. He's not forcing shots. Like, he'll have his 40-point games every now and then, but he doesn't need to do that, which, we'll get into the all-star conversation, not all-star conversation, the MVP conversation surrounding him, which is why some voters are, not putting up as high as he really deserves to be. But I'd say the most important dynamic so far is how quickly the team gelled, implementing 2 new players, 2, big-time players, and especially Porzingis, just seeing the level of performer that he is and the high ceiling that we have when he's at full strength. Like when we're at full strength, I can't see anybody beating us. So it's been a very encouraging first half. The fact that there's been, knock on wood, no major injuries. We've had, nicks and bruises here. Porzingis has missed a little bit of time, but, when the whole product is there, they look incredible.
I agree. Now, just for the, argument of debate, I'm just going to go KP because I feel like if KP isn't your second best player on this team, because Jaylen Brown has struggled. He's had ups and downs this whole entire season. If KP isn't there being consistent, the Celtics record probably isn't what it is right now. We probably lose maybe a couple of games here and there because, Jaylen struggled and KP has really elevated his game of play. since he's come over. I mean, I think he said in an interview that the Celtics organization is like, it's good to win, and he feels like that love from the fans, and it motivates him to want to play better. And I think, for the first half, he's been pretty good for them.
Yeah, that guy hasn't stopped smiling since he got to Boston. I mean, just being around a winning organization with adults, with people that have been in deep playoff runs, and knowing how much he adds to it. It's definitely been a good year for him. And from a fan base, just being able to watch him play, a guy that has the skill set that he has, and the elevation of our ceiling that he provides for us. Especially watching him play against a team like the Heat, that in the years past, when they switched to a zone against us, we had our issues with it. We'd get stuck swinging the ball around the perimeter when Jaylen Brown would try to drive into lane with multiple defenders crashing. He wouldn't know what to do. Now you just throw it to Porzingis at the top of the key, and he can see over the whole defense. He can shoot it over anybody. He can make the right play. He's just been exactly what this team needed, and I'm glad we got him. All those opposing fan bases in the offseason that were trying to think that the Celtics somehow got worse by getting Porzingis and bringing up his injury history when he had played 65 games last year. And if it wasn't for that team being dog shit, they would have played him more down the stretch when they just rested him at the end because there wasn't really a need to play him. But he's elevated this team to a whole new level. And I love watching these guys play. And I'm just, hopeful, knock on wood, that we're going to get a full playoff run of health from him and from the entire team.
So what's interesting is when we think about Porzingis, right? Like when we watch him with the Celtics, like he's such like a good scorer. He's good for the zone. Like he's putting the ball in the hoop. Like why hasn't he worked out in places like the New York Knicks or the Dallas Mavericks? I know Washington was like a 1-year thing, and he wasn't, that team wasn't that good anyway. But Mavs were pretty good. The Knicks, I can't really think of what team they had around them then, but I'm sure they had a couple good pieces. Like why do you think? Obviously, like with the Celtics, right, we have a ton of good players. So obviously you bring another good player in, he's going to fit. He's going to do what he's supposed to do. He's going to do his job. You're not going to ask a ton from him. But do you think, he should have been like this at other places? Or do you think it's just the Celtics culture?
I think maturity has to do a lot with it. The age he's at right now and where he's at in his career versus when he came into New York, he was the unicorn. He was the prodigy, So he's jumping out the gym, making all these highlight type plays, but he wasn't winning. It wasn't a great team that was put around him. When he goes to Dallas, yeah, it's actually incredible when you look back on it. The Dallas wasn't better having Jalen Brunson and Porzingis along with Luka. But you look at the way the team played, Luka dribbles the air out of the basketball for 20 seconds, and Porzingis had more of a Kevin or Love, Chris Bosh role, just kind of stand in the corner. Whereas the Celtics team is just so unselfish. Like it's a bunch of adults around. Drew Holiday is an adult. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are far enough in their career now where winning's the only thing that matters. Derek White's the ultimate team guy, the glue guy. Like Al Horford, it's adults in the room, and everybody has a common goal in mind, which is to win. It's not stats. Like there's nights, like I said, Tatum could go for 50 if he wants. Porzingis could, shoot the ball to get 40 if he wants. Like that's not the point. The point is to win. And I think he's ready for that now. It was like a match made in heaven. Like Porzingis at this point in his career, and even Tatum referenced it. He feels like this is his Paul Gasol. Like when Kobe got Gasol, like this is the big man he needed, and he's perfect for the way that we play, for the team culture. And yeah, I mean, Brad has probably been scouting him for a while. Obviously, you said with the Wizards, not much was expected of them. They had good individual pieces, but they weren't playing as a team. But like I remember last year, he cooked us one game. Like he had, I think it was like 30 something, and just he scores so effortlessly, and you can't really defend him. Guy's 7'3", taking step backs, can score in the post and score mid range. So he was a perfect piece for this team. I'm very happy that we have him.
Yeah, just a quick thought on the Mavs, like you say, like you're surprised it didn't work. When you look at the Mavs, so like, do you see any player in the NBA that could like fit with Luka? Because when Luka plays, it's like he's only creating stuff for himself. Like I know he's probably top 3 in assists because I know he averages about like 10 a game, but he seems like a difficult player to like fit in and like mesh with and kind of play the way that he wants to play. And when I watch him, it just doesn't look like, he'd be the type of guy that could lead a championship team. I don't know. It just, the way that he plays kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't know. It just, maybe that's, a reason why, Porzingis didn't really work out with the Mavs. Cause I know they had some friction. I know they was reported they had some friction or whatnot with how Luka played, and he wasn't really sharing the ball or whatnot, taking crazy amount of shots, but that's here nor there. That's just a small thought on that. So I do want to move to the All-Star game. Now, before we get to the All-Star game itself, I want to get to Saturday night, all the skills competition with I think there's like 3 groups, like the All-Stars. The Pacers had their own group because they were hosting the All-Star game, and then they had the rookies. You had Steph and Sabrina 3-point contest, and you had the 3-point contest, and then the dunk contest. So before we get into these, I want to know, before Saturday even happened, rank and take out Sabrina and Steph because that doesn't happen on a yearly basis. I want you to rank the skills, dunk, and 3-point competition that are your personal favorites in order.
I'd say 3-point competition lately has clearly been like the best part of All-Star Weekend. It's the most competitive. It's, it's not based on someone else's opinion, like of the dunk. It's not, like it's just a 3-point shooting contest. So to me, that's the most exciting. You get the most skilled 3-point shooters. It's an equal playing field, so that's always been the best for me. I feel like that still was the best part of All-Star Weekend. How, I think 4 different guys had 26 in the first round and they had to go to a shootout to get past it. The Sabrina and Steph thing was exciting. I mean, hats off to her. She's an incredible shooter. She's shooting from the men's line. And her score would have been as high as any other men except for Steph Curry, and it also just proves what a generational shooter Steph Curry was, where, he's just sitting there the whole night and come in for one round and drop the highest score of the night. But yeah, I mean, the dunk contest, Mac McClung last year, I felt like was amazing. This year, I feel like he kind of did the same dunks. If anything, he was better last year. Now, like, I don't think any of it was that great. Like, as big of a Celtics fan as I am and JB supporter, like, I feel like he kind of didn't have the best dunks, but he also did reference that the floor is a little slippery. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, it's an exhibition. It's a fun thing. Like, if he hurts himself trying to do something crazy and he's out for a significant time in the second half, that wouldn't be worth it at all. So yeah, he's going to get clowned because everybody hates the Celtics. And by reference, they hate Jaylen Brown. So they're mad at the scores he got, but it's like, I didn't think anything that Jaime Jaquez, their, top-end kid, did was that impressive. So I feel like they were all kind of in the same boat. Jaylen just got hated on, but Jaylen, like, what he did is he was doing like homages with his dunk. Like, the first one was to Dominique. The second one was to his friend that passed away. And, then the one over Kai Cenat, like, yeah, I mean, maybe he could have done something a little different than jumping over a guy that's 5'2" who was sitting down. But, you got to encapsulate Tatum. And then I would have liked to see him recreate the one that Gerald Green did, where Paul Pierce threw it off the side of the backboard, and then Gerald Green did like a windmill.
Yeah.
The D Brown one that he referenced, like, if you're going to do that, you have to actually do it. Like, he just did it, and then at the end, he kind of gave the little, like, D Brown dab. But, it was – the dunk contest has gone so far downhill, but the haters can't have it both ways. Like, everyone complains that none of the stars do it, but then Jaylen Brown is the biggest star that's done this in a long time, and then he just gets clowned on for it. So it's like you're wondering why LeBron or somebody else doesn't want to do that, because they're just going to get crap. It's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. So, but Jaylen seemed to be in good spirits, even though, he was getting booed the whole time. So, when we sweep Indiana in the first round and then Jalen's giving him one of these again, that'll be nice. But what did you think about the weekend as a whole?
So just to quickly, before I answer that, to go on the Jaylen thing, Jaylen, I think, had a bigger motive in mind than trying to perform or win the dunk contest. And that was to prove to other superstars or all-stars that it's okay to do the dunk contest. I think that was his main, like, goal, to, like, it's okay if you get, like, made fun of or whatnot. Like, do you really want the dunk contest every year to be 2 guys from the G League and then Jaime Jaquez who did okay? But, like, the dunk contest should be your best dunkers in the game competing against each other. And it's turning to be a G League competition where half your competition is G League guys. It was 2 out of 4 were G League. Why would we? And you're saving that if you're gonna do that, and you're gonna have, like, these, bench guys come and do the dunk contest, move the dunk contest to the first thing, because why would we want to sit and wait for that at 10 o'clock at night, to watch that? I don't. The 3-point competition to me is way more, exciting to watch. So to put mine in order, I probably go the 3-point for me was amazing. The skills, and then dunk. Sabrina and Steph, I thought, was amazing. Obviously, it was for charity too. They both got, amounts for the charity. Sabrina's an absolute sniper. If she played in the NBA, I'm sure she'd be, one of the best shooters or something like that.
I don't know if she'd ever get her shot off in the NBA, though.
Yeah, they probably close down.
It's a more physical game. Like, hats off to her. It's incredible the way she can shoot, but, like, a WNBA player can't play in the NBA. It's way too physical. and she's 5'11". Like, keep that in mind. You think Peyton Pritchard's small out there, and that's a man playing. Like, she's 2 inches smaller than him. So
No,
just for reference.
no, I know. But I mean, if she has open space, she'll knock him down, right?
Yeah,
So
open
that's
space. Also, a men's basketball, it's a little different because she was shooting with a women's ball.
so she shot with a women's ball in the competition.
Yeah, so they shot from the same distance, but it was two different balls. Now, if she's shooting from like her distance, maybe she even wins that. But I mean, it was equal playing field with that. But like, she's also used to shooting with a women's ball, so it might have been unfair to have her shoot with the regulation size basketball if she's not, accustomed to that.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, the NBA, it's a whole different thing. You've been playing one ball your whole life, and you have to switch to a bigger basketball. So maybe, I'm sure her hands are probably a little smaller than the average NBA player. So maybe she wouldn't have the same touch. I mean, she's a great shooter, but it's not an NBA player.
Yeah, that makes sense. I completely forgot the intangibles of like her hands are probably smaller. I forgot she used it. I thought when I was watching, I was listening to Kenny and Reggie and Shaq. I thought they were saying that she was shooting from an NBA line and she was also using an NBA ball. I didn't know now that she was using a WNBA ball. I thought they were using the same ball. So I guess that's my mistake. I don't know why I would have thought that, but I thought that's what was going on. But yeah, I mean, to go off of that, the 3-point competition in these, the All-Star games is probably the best of the three, just because you actually have some of the best 3-point shooters in this competition. And that just to me is what I want to see. I don't want to see, G League guys shooting threes. I want to see the best 3-point shooters compete against each other. And it was the best competition. I think what surprised me the most was how far Cat shot in that competition. Like, he's actually an absolute sniper. I don't know why he doesn't take more threes in actual games, but that was pretty cool to see. So obviously moving to the actual game itself on Sunday, that's a completely different story. Saturday, there was some good things to see. In my opinion, at least, the All-Star game is just one big circus. You see Luka and Joker passing the ball back and forth to each other going up the court. You see Dame shooting logo threes. Like, yeah, that's cool and all, but like, you want to see just a tad bit of competition. And here's what the players will argue. And I'll also say this. They don't want to try so hard in the All-Star game. Like, what happens if they tear an ACL or they strain their hamstring, then they're out for 2 to 4 weeks and they're missing actual real game time? Like, I get it. Trust me, I do. But like, can we have just a little bit more, like just a tad bit more competition, just to make it, a little bit more interesting? And one more thing before you go, because I'm rambling thoughts. I have all these different thoughts. I would like in baseball, in the All-Star game, if the American League wins, they get home field advantage in the World Series. What if they did something like that in the NBA, where if the East wins, they get home court advantage. If the West wins, they get home court advantage. Just something along those lines.
So to work my way back, they actually eliminated that in the MLB a few years back. So yeah, so that no longer determines home field. It's based on record. In the NBA, I would not want that. I mean, I think there definitely needs to be something that's going to bring up the level of competition in the game, but not risk the injuries that, you reference. But like, you have the Celtics that are just world beaters right now, the best record in the NBA. And I have to worry about if we're going to get home court advantage because Scotty Barnes is dribbling it off his leg. Like, someone that is going to be nowhere near the finals or the playoffs. So I don't think that's the answer. But, I get excited when they said it was going to be East versus West because that's how I liked it. I miss the old days. Like, I grew up in the 90s, like where the players are wearing their own jerseys. So obviously you'd have the one side wear all white and the other side wear all away. So you can still tell the difference. But like, there's got to be some competition. The players now don't have the same pride because back then players all used to not really like each other. Now they all grew up together. They're all in the AAU circuit with each other. So it makes it a little bit harder. Everyone's kind of goofing around the whole time. No one takes it that seriously. Everyone's just trying to, get their highlight. So, I mean, yeah, like you said, Dame, this weekend really meant a lot to him because, I mean, he won the 3-point contest. Hats off, he's a great 3-point shooter. But like, him and Jalen pretty much had the same amount of points in the All-Star game, but Dame took like twice as many shots. Like, that seemed to mean a lot to him to get that, like, because he's had a subpar year in Milwaukee. That team's underperformed expectations. So this was kind of his moment to shine, I guess, and remind people that he's, still Damian Lillard. But I mean, I just felt like it was kind of ball hogging versus, obviously you look at Kat, he was taking a lot of shots too. But I just felt like Damian Lillard just did not want to pass the ball at all. Versus you look at Jalen, he was on a fast break when he already, was leading the East in points at that time, and he just passed it back to Giannis. So he doesn't really like that much. But just playing the flow of the game versus I felt like Dame wasn't necessarily doing that. Kudos to him. He had some really impressive, half court threes, but I don't really know what the fix is. Like, you can make it financial incentives like they had for like the in-season tournament. Maybe they'll make people play harder, but I don't think having home court advantage in the finals on the line when like NBA, the best teams are always in the final, at least in the final four of the final four teams in the NBA. Like, to have that be risked by Trae Young or Scotty Barnes or someone from some dog shit team that has no business being in the playoffs, like, have that be, the deciding factor. I don't think that's the answer. I guess Adam Silver has to figure it out, but I think the status quo for the All-Star game can't continue because it's cool to say you're an All-Star and everyone makes such a big deal. Like, oh, he's going to be a starter for the All-Star game. Like, he made the roster. It's like almost like, who cares, It's not a good product right now.
Yeah, it looks bad, but I for some reason, when I look at Dame and I look at, Giannis and Tatum and Joker and all that, they just don't look like they're having fun at the game, right? They're just there to be there. Like, they don't really appreciate necessarily being an all-star. Maybe they do, like, when they get interviewed or whatnot and they talk separately about it, but it just their, enthusiasm and their body language when they play this game. I mean, Joker especially, oh my God, he doesn't want to play basketball in general, let alone
him and Luka, like, they're in their own world there, and it's not like a competition world.
They want no part of this. They'd rather be home. Joker would rather be racing horses. He wants absolutely nothing to do with this game right now. And like you said, the only thing when you were speaking that I could think of that like maybe they'd try a little bit harder is what if like the winning team got like, I don't even know how you split up, but maybe the whole team gets like 500,000 towards like their each individual, not 500,000 each player, but like they get 500,000 for the team and they split it and it goes to their own charity or something. I don't know. Like, I seriously don't know what you do for that All-Star game if you're not going to make it. If the East wins, they get home court or whatnot. Because like, what are they actually going to play for? Like what? Like, how do you? I don't know. Like, I'm stumped on that.
Well, it's like a few years ago, like the Kobe rule at first, it was interesting where it's like, they would have individual quarters, which did make it more competitive. And then there was a target score. And if you remember that first year when we had Nick Nurse coaching and Kemba Walker out there and Nick Nurse ran Kemba's knees into the ground, short of that, which kind of hurt our season, where like it became very competitive at the end. Like, that was actually good competition though. So that was exciting to see. Like, I get it. You don't want players to hurt. So it's a fine line they have to walk. Adam Silver is going to have to figure it out. But like I said, the current format of it, you're just going to have less and less people interested. I will say this, baseball, for how much people say like the product has gone downhill, that's definitely the best All-Star weekend of any sport. Like the home run derby and then the baseball games are very competitive, even though, it doesn't count for who wins, is hosting American League versus National League anymore. Like, it's just a much better game. Like, it's usually always close. Everyone's trying versus this, where it's just kind of like hanging out with your boys, and especially like Luka and Jokic, that just like give zero seriousness to this game.
Well, I think what a good reason for why you probably see more competition in the MLB in the All-Star game. Pitchers only pitch one inning. Nobody goes, multiple innings, and hitters probably get one or two at bats before they rotate because they got a ton of people. They bring in, I mean, each team probably has like 30-ish All-Stars if you count pitchers and hitters. So like there's room to just rotate people. Whereas basketball, you got your starting five and you probably got 5 or 6, 7, 8 on the bench. So it's kind of hard to like, everybody's got to play a substantial amount of minutes. You can't, run people into the ground unless you're Nick Nurse, because he'll do it. But I do want to, so I want to get to something before the Tatum MVP conversation, because it came up in the news and I didn't really realize it until now, until we were talking about the Bucks and Giannis and Dame. Doc Rivers has been taking some heat lately about, he said some comments about coming into the season. It was harder than he expected. He wish he knew it was going to be this hard before he, accepted the job halfway through the season. I want to touch on this a little bit. Just what are your thoughts on, do you think the Bucks are like cooked? Like, do you think they're just like Doc can't get this team together? If they come out of the All-Star break and they lose 2 out of 5, 2 out of 6, like, do you think they're pretty much toast?
So, I think it's crazy the representation they got in the All-Star game. They got the All-Star coach, Doc Rivers, who's gone 2-6 or 3-6 or 3-7 since he's taken over. They get 2 All-Star starters. One of their All-Stars wins the 3-point contest and is the All-Star game MVP. Like, if you just saw that on its surface, you think like, wow, this team must be really impressive, and they're not. And Doc Rivers, like, he was their advisor earlier this year, which I guess we didn't know about until he took over the head coaching role. But it's like he didn't just come out of left field and be like, oh, Dame and Giannis, like, oh, this is going to be a great team. Like, he's been watching them all year. So when he starts talking about, like, oh, I didn't know it was going to be this hard, and it's like, oh, this was the wrong time of the schedule to start, it's like, you chose to do this. Like, no one forced you to do this unless someone has pictures of Doc doing something, and this is something they're holding over him to, make him coach this team. I mean, you chose this. Like, at the end of the day, you can implement new measures to try to get more defense out of them. But if you have to look at the personnel, this is not a team that is going to be an elite defensive team. They're not even a good defensive team. Like, you can coach up schematically, but you're never going to make Damian Lillard and Pat Connaughton good defenders. Like, I think Brook Lopez has regressed defensively a lot. He doesn't even grab rebounds when you watch him. He just kind of tips it and hopes he can tip it to himself because he's 7 feet tall. Like, this team is just not good. Like, I think the Bucks, depending on matchup, could go down in round 1. Like, they have a high ceiling and a very low floor. Like, if you told me the Bucks went on some type of run that they went to the Eastern Conference Finals or Finals, you'd be like, yeah, they have Damian Lillard, they have Giannis, it's possible. At the same time, they get Indiana or Miami in round 1, they could go home in 5 or 6 again. So it's just, I just don't like this team. And then you have all the drama in the media. Everyone's like making news about, Damian Lillard's list and how he's only happy because he was around Bam and he wanted to be Heat. He didn't want to be in Milwaukee. Giannis just always talks out of both sides of his mouth. Doc Rivers now, like, I just don't like that team. It's not that I don't like them. It's like I don't like the makeup. I don't think they understood how much they were losing getting rid of Jrue Holiday. And that's without him even going to their biggest rival in Boston. So I don't think they're any better than last year. I think they're worse. They're set up worse for a playoff run. Like, yeah, Damian Lillard might win them a game or 2 in the playoffs himself by going off. But then the next night he's going to go, shoot tour dates, 5 for 20, 5 for 21. Like, and I don't think if he's doing that, he's useless on the floor because he's not a defender. He's actually a negative defender. Like, he can try, but he's undersized. He can't guard anybody. So I don't think that team. I think the team, if you're looking at it, it's all matchup. Depending, like, I think for them to get to the conference finals, it's gonna take. It's gonna be all matchup dependent, and them getting to the finals is gonna take someone else beating Boston, because this isn't even a homer take. I don't think in a 7-game series they can beat us 4 times. Not with the defense they have, not with how many scorers we have. We're not going to be playing back-to-backs in the playoffs, coming off an overtime game in a different city while they're rested. It's just not the case. So call it a homer take if you like. The only team that gives me any worry is the Heat. And I just think with our current iteration of our roster, short of, Heat culture landing under one of our ankles or another injury, I just can't see anybody in the East beating us. What are your thoughts, Jason?
So I agree with the the Heat culture. They'll get one of our players. It's just a matter of time before that happens. But I think Milwaukee's biggest issue was acquiring Dame. I think they thought Dame was going to solve a lot of their offensive issues if Giannis wasn't on. I thought they bring in Dame, then Dame can take over. He can drop 45 and take them to the promised land. But they completely undervalued defense. And I don't think they realized when they shipped Jrue out to the Blazers that they would have any idea that they'd trade him out and he'd come to us. If they knew that Dame coming to them would result in Jrue coming to us, I don't know if they make that deal. I don't know. I would struggle to think that they would. But then, like, I guess if you're getting a player like Dame, you're like, well, you're going to roll the dice and, Dame will outshoot or outdo whatever Jrue Holiday will do for the Celtics. But I think they messed up the organization within that team. They messed up defense. They messed up player personnel. And like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if they're out in the first round. I mean, it's only a matter of time before all their defensive liabilities come to the forefront, as they've already have, but even more in the playoffs when they got Brunson dribbling around them and, doing whatever he wants, and Randall doing what he wants, and DiVincenzo turning into the next coming of Steph Curry. Like, it's just a matter of time before they crumble.
The playoffs are more of a half court game as well, which really hurts them since they're a bad defensive team. Like, a lot of their scoring comes from leaking out in transition, Giannis on a fast break, Damian Lillard fast break pull-up threes, or Malik Beasley. Not even to mention Middleton, who knows what he'll be, But again, if Middleton's hurt, none of these count. When he's not out there, it doesn't count. But yeah, I just don't know what that team can do. Like
Well,
I
I mean,
said, they have a high ceiling with Giannis and Dame, but their floor is really low.
well, now you mentioned, turns into a half court game. I mean, they acquired Patrick Beverley to kind of help them with whatever defensive liabilities they have, but you're not going to play Patrick Beverley 25 minutes a night. Like you're not going to do that. So, I mean, there's only so much he's going to be able to do. They did sign Gallinari, who I think we would have been open to having on the Celtics if he wanted to come back. But I saw a comment that was made by him either last year or the beginning before this year that he had every Celtics game circled on his calendar that he wanted to play us. I don't know why he would have any bad blood with us. We helped him rehab, and I know we traded him or whatnot, but I don't why do you have so much bad beef with us?
I mean, he got paid $8 million last year to wear nice suits and sit on the bench with the team.
Exactly.
But I mean, I don't know what he does for them. Look, in a vacuum, before his injury, he was a good shooter, but he was already old, slow, can't play defense. He can hit an occasional shot. He pretty much fits into the rest of that Bucks roster. So if Gallinari is the reason you're not beating the Bucks, then you have much bigger problems internally, and this wasn't going to be your year anyway. So look, he's someone he's a veteran, maybe can provide some leadership. I don't really see Giannis or Dame listening to anybody anyways, so I don't think that's going to happen. I think for the regular season, maybe he'll spot some minutes. But to me, he's like another Jay Crowder, except without the defense. He'll hit an occasional shot, but he's older, and I don't know. I really don't know what he does for them. The thing that is the East, no one made any moves to really move themselves closer to the Celtics. That was the only thing with the Bucks is okay, can they get a DeJounte Murray? Can they get a Marcus Smart? Can they get someone like that that's going to be a true dog that they can start? That's going to really move the needle. None of their moves. Patrick Beverley's a nice player. They gave up Cameron Payne. They swapped offense for defense, but it doesn't change their trajectory. Either does Gallinari, So the Knicks are the only team that really made moves, and we haven't even seen it yet because they haven't been healthy.
Yeah. They have a ton of injuries on their team right now. I think Randall's probably going to be out another 2 weeks. DiVincenzo had a hamstring. Brunson's has a hamstring. They have a ton of injuries. But I want to circle to the Tatum MVP conversation, and this has been going on full blast since Tatum had that sit-down interview with Malika Andrews saying he thinks he's the best player in the NBA right now. Now, when the NBA determines who the MVP is, or whoever the board or the people that pick, they look at two things. Got to be on the best team in the NBA, and you got to be the best player on that team in the NBA. You got to have the best record, too, as another thing. And Tatum has all three of those. We can all agree Tatum's the best player on the Celtics, and they got the best record. So, in theory, you would think he would have a lot of MVP votes, but you'd be wrong because according to ESPN's how they put the odds out on ESPN bets, he is the sixth person with the best odds to win MVP. He's behind the likes of Luka, Joker, Giannis, and I'm forgetting the two others. I don't have the list in front of me.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Gilgeous-Alexander. And then there's one more. I don't know how. I mean, it just makes no sense to me. I'm puzzled. I don't really understand why Tatum should be leading for MVP. He's played in a ton of games. Again, the Celtics have the best record. He's the best player on the Celtics. So in theory, he should win. What are your thoughts?
I think, again, a lot of it has to do with anti-Celtic narrative. They try to have it both ways. If Tatum's scoring a lot, he's stat padding. But when he's not scoring as much, that's why. Last year, he averaged over 30 points a game. And he was only and they had the second best record in the NBA, only off by a game on Milwaukee. And he only finished fourth. This year, all his numbers are up as far as percentages, as far as efficiency. Yeah, he dropped down a few points a game to 27 a game, but his assists are up. But they try to say, it's okay, well, he has a super team. But we have a super team, yet we only had 2 All-Stars. He only had 1 additional All-Star besides himself. So you can't have it both ways. And I think they even did say, I think it was Brian Windhorst on ESPN on NBA Today said that a lot of voters will hold the NBA Finals from 2 years ago against him. They don't reference any of his good playoffs, but they reference the NBA Finals. Meanwhile, Joel Embiid gets to win it, and he's a notorious playoff dropper, has never been past the second round in his career. So, and then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, look, he's a good young player. He's been amazing this year, and I think he should be up there. But he's never done anything in the playoffs, So Luka's only been past the second round once, and they lost in the conference finals. Like, it's just an anti-Celtic narrative, an anti-Tatum agenda by association. So I don't really know what he can do to win it. Although I will say, since Stephen A. Smith, hats off to him. Like, he runs hot and cold in the Celtics. Right now, he's hot on them. And since he started talking about how he should be the MVP, his betting odds went from minus 4,000 to minus 2,200. So maybe that is swaying some voters, but I just can't see him winning it. Even if he passes Luka, which I think he should, just based on record and effect on winning. I think right now it is Jokic and it is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that would be the 1-2. I don't think Giannis should win it because that team's far under exceeded expectations. Although I will say, you take him off that team, and I don't think they're even a playoff team.
No,
So you take Tatum off the Celtics, and I think they're still right. I mean, I'm not gonna say they're as good as they are because obviously they're not, but they're still, like, I'd say a top 4 team in the East without Tatum, at least regular season wise. So that's Giannis's only argument, but it's like based on winning and like that level of performance, I don't think he should be up above Tatum.
So I have the odds right here, which are kind of crazy there. So there's only 4 people in front of him. So between the last time I looked, which is like a day and a half ago, to now, Tatum's up to 5. So it's Joker at minus 140. Then you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at plus 210. Then it's Giannis at plus 850. Luka at plus 1,100. And then it's Tatum at plus 4,000. So
that's dropped. I forgot what it was, which app it was, but it had dropped to 2,200.
Okay. So
even still, though, still 5th.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing with Joker, though. The Nuggets aren't the best team in the West. It's the Timberwolves. So, like, if they're gonna go by, you got to be the best player on the best team with the best record in your, conference. Joker wouldn't even be in the conversation. Like, he's not on the Timberwolves. So for me, it makes like utterly no sense.
They could finish 4th.
Could they? Yeah.
Because you have the Clippers, you have the Timberwolves, and you have, who am I forgetting right now? Clippers, Timberwolves, and Thunder. Like, all 3 of them, they're all within like a half game of each other. Like, it's feasible that they could finish 4th.
And then they've
been getting blown out a lot as we've been doing betting. So
yeah, they've had Murray messed up his ankle. Joker probably because he was thinking about the All-Star break, so he's probably toning it down. And then KCP had like a hamstring thing, whatever. But then after Tatum, it's Kawhi and then Brunson at plus 10,000, and they're both plus 10,000, so they're tied pretty much. But I didn't really think Celtics bias had that much strength, but apparently it does. Like, Tatum should not. He should be in the top 3. I mean, I know, the Bucks have done nothing though. I don't know. To me, it's messed up. If he doesn't win this year, like if the Celtics do good and they get one of the best records and they finish first and he doesn't get top 3 or even like top 2, that's just ridiculous in my mind.
They are going to finish with the best record, barring something unforeseen. So even I forgot, I think it was Draymond Green who said that like they're not going to consider him seriously for an MVP until they win a championship. But I'm like, Jokic has 2 MVPs. He hadn't won a championship yet. Joel Embiid's never won a championship and will never win a championship. Like, look at all the MVPs. Like, when's the last one that had, won a championship before he became MVP? Was it LeBron? Yeah. Like, when was the last one?
I'd have to look, but it
makes a double standard is what it feels like.
It makes no sense. And the thing is like, I think you and I have to be a little serious about like now is the time for Tatum to win, right? It's not next. Well, I mean, he can win next year, but I'm saying like he needs to, this is the time for him to win. He has the right cast around him. They're first. They're probably gonna have an easier path to the East Finals. Now's the time, right? And I think if he wins this year, hopefully the MVP, he'll be holding a lot of hardware this year. That's for sure. If he wins, that'd be insane. But kind of shifting a little bit, we got to talk about second half thoughts, right? Before we started recording, we kind of went through their first month or so of games, and they're not the easiest. I know we said that, second half of the schedule is pretty easy. They have a little bit of a gauntlet coming up. Obviously, they start off tomorrow. They get the easy Bulls. Saturday night game against the Knicks is going to be pretty big. 76ers coming up, and then they got this 5-game stretch that's going to be pretty difficult. They got the Mavs, Warriors, Cavs, Nuggets, Suns, all teams that are going to be competing for a spot in the playoffs. So what are your thoughts on their schedule coming up?
So I'd like to see how they come out tomorrow out of the gate. Obviously, Chicago's a team they should beat, but we'll see if their heads are still on vacation mode, how seriously they take it. Especially we're coming to the home stretch. The Celtics, for all intents and purposes, already have the 1 seed wrapped up. I would like them to take the next few weeks seriously because once you get to the final 4 weeks, it's just mostly home games. It's a lot of Charlotte, Washington, and Detroit's. That's like those are type of games where you can rest a starter or two every single night and still should win most of those games. So I'd say try to take care of business out of the stretch. Put your foot down. Obviously, be cognizant of minutes, especially with Porzingis. He doesn't need to play every game. He's obviously not going to play back to backs. Al Horford, who already doesn't play back to backs, but I'd like to see how they do, especially when Golden State comes to town, taking care of business there. You get to see not the new look Cleveland team. It's the same team, but a team that has been rolling. I don't know who will be available for the Knicks on Saturday. Now we are 3-0 against them. I'd love to see them at full strength just to see how we play against them. But if they're not full strength, that should be a game that we win. The Denver game in Denver in a few weeks will be good to watch. That I want to see them. I mean, that was a good game the first time, even though Charles Barkley said we got spanked by 2 on a missed shot at the buzzer. I'd like to go into Denver and win. We split with them last year. So, I'd like to see them just put their foot on their throats earlier in that game and just, take it to them. Especially since that could be a finals preview. You don't want to have lost both of the games against them prior, but just keep the momentum going, just keep winning, and everything else will take care of itself. And then you get yourself in a position that could come as early as the end of next month where they have the 1 seed all wrapped up. Then you can really start game planning. It's like, okay, how do we approach the last few weeks? Where we balance rust versus rest. And getting prepared for the playoffs. But, it's an exciting time of year. The playoffs are just right around the corner, and that's what we all can't wait to get to. I'm sure the players as well, but you can only control what you can control. So just continuing to build off the good habits and just keep stacking the W's.
Yeah, I agree. I think probably the biggest thing you've got to be mindful of is just health down the stretch, especially with Horford and KP, making sure you're managing their games and their minutes properly, especially if you're not really playing for anything. Like if you have the one seed pretty much wrapped up, I don't want to see KP playing 32 minutes a night. Cut his minutes back, make him play, 20 to 25, give him a game off here and there. You don't need to push it, but against the Knicks coming up out of the break, I think the only player that they shouldn't have is Randall because he's still dealing with that dislocation of the shoulder. So they won't be exactly fully healthy, but you'll see most of the people back that have been recently injured. But yeah, just going into the schedule. I mean, after you get through, that tough stretch, it's pretty easy sailing from there. There's not many games that I look at and be like, oh, that's a tough game. They do have the Bucks spread out here and there between like the Pistons. They play the Pistons so many times. Pistons and Hawks. You're gonna see a lot of games with Pistons and Hawks.
That's how the Bucks and Sixers built up their record at the beginning of the year. Like it was a facade. They played the Wizards, the Pistons, the Hornets, and the Hawks every other game. And so they built up that record to stay competitive with us while we were doing it against the gauntlet of a schedule. And then now, obviously people are going to say the Sixers aren't winning because they don't have Embiid, which is true. But it's like now both of those teams have actual tough schedules. And I think, we're already, 10.5 games above the Sixers and 8.5 above the Bucks. Like those numbers could get ridiculous soon. Like we could finish 15 games above both of those teams. We could win the East by over 10 games if we want to.
Yeah, I'm just looking right here. After we get through the Suns, it's Wizards, Pistons, Bucks, Pistons, Bulls, Hawks. Like it doesn't stop for those easy, and it rolls right into the April where we get Hornets, Wizards, Kings. We do have the Thunder, who actually beat us pretty good the first time in OKC. I got to admit, like that Thunder team, that they're pretty nasty. But yeah, Trailblazers, Hornets, Wizards, like we have if we take care of business in the first month or so, we should be pretty good where we can kind of, I don't want to say completely take our foot off the gas pedal, but like get the rest because like we need to turn it up first round playoffs and make a run here. And I don't want to be down a player or two or whatnot because we're trying to beat the Wizards by 40. So like
I think they will do that. At the end of the day, it's like even if we were playing for something after the last game of the season, it's going to be a full week that we have off until we play our first home game against whoever wins the play-in, and whoever wins not wins the play-in, but ends up with the 8th seed. So we're already going to have a week plus the last few weeks of the season. We're going to be basically playing for nothing. So it's a balance of like you want everybody to be rested, and they will, but it's like you want them to be focused too because of the task at hand. So short of getting the Heat in the first round, the first round matchup should hopefully, knock on wood, be something that's more of an advantageous thing. And then just learning lessons from last year, not dick around in the first round. Like, I get it. No way they played the Hawks and that won 7, and that was the best team we've had. That won 7, that Cleveland series won 7, that they didn't have any business. But like last year, the Hawks, that should have been a 4-game series, at the minimum 5, and they messed around with them, and it went to a game 6. And honestly, they were like, that was back and forth until the end of the 4th. Like, that could have been a game 7. Like, I think learning from that and not letting the series extend to save rest, because then you play, let's say we play Orlando. If we take it seriously, that's a 4-game series. Maybe there's one outlier game and they steal 1 game, but letting a series against Orlando go 6 or 7 and risking additional injuries, risking, like fatigue and minutes, like there's no need to do that. Like, there may be times later in the playoffs where, series does go 6 or 7 because we're playing, a much better team or it's a better matchup. But like, the first round does not need to be that.
Oh yeah, for sure. If we lose, even if we lose a game to Orlando, I'd be so pissed because they don't have less. Are you gonna really let Pablo Banchero and Jalen Suggs like take a game from you? Like, come on, you can't.
They do play physical though. Remember last year they did beat us 3 times, but it's like if we're playing seriously, the talent differential is just so massive.
It's so like who, like it goes Pablo Banchero, now probably Franz Wagner is probably in there too, probably second. Then you got Jalen Suggs. Like, I don't know. If you're losing a game to them, maybe
I'm accounting for one outlier game where we're shooting horribly, they're shooting amazing. Maybe it happens, but 2 is like a bad representation of us. So it's like the first round series going past 5, short of it being a series against the Heat, which I honestly think they're going to end up in the top 6, which would be good for us, and for them too, because I think they take the Bucks out in the first round if that's the matchup. Although I don't even know, like, we'll ask this as it gets closer. I'm like, I wonder who who Celtics fans would be rooting for in that series. Like last year, I think we were all rooting for the Heat against the Bucks in the first round because that guaranteed us home court advantage, and nobody saw the devil's magic that came out of the Heat last year. But this time around, I wonder who everybody would be rooting for. Honestly, I think the Bucks would be a much easier first round series. Not first round, but playoff matchup.
Oh yeah, for sure. You'd want to face the Bucks. Like, I mean, Al Horford has pretty much been a Giannis lockdown defender since he came back to the Celtics after he had like a mystery year with the Thunder. And we have Drew, who probably wants to stick it to Giannis and the Bucks. So like, I have PTSD from the Heat. No, I feel like every year when I say the Heat, they're not good. They're not going to make it that far. They always find a way to do it. I would rather see the Bucks over the Heat. Like, the Heat, dude, I don't know. Sometimes, man, they pull stuff out of their hat that I just don't see coming. Like Duncan Robinson turns into Ray Allen. Jaime Hawkins is going to have 35 points against us in a playoff game this year. It's going to happen. Jimmy Butler will come back and put up 28, 10, and 5. Tyler Hero will do something crazy. Bam will grab a ton of board. Like, I honestly don't even want to talk about it because I know there's going to be a game or 2 where it happens, and it's just
like I could just as easily as you're saying that, I could just as easily see them getting swept in the first round too. Like that team, I don't know what to expect out of them, and part of me would love to be the ones to knock them out. Just to, like that's part of our journey to win a championship is just like kicking the shit out of them. But another part of me is like, it's not worth it for that closeout from Bam that's going to land under Porzingis' ankle, and then he's going to be out for that series. Like I just don't want to deal with that. Like I'd rather have somebody else knock him out. Like let him honestly lose 2 games in the play in and just be done with it. But we'll get more into that as we get closer to the playoffs and talk matchups.
Yeah, we will. I think that was a good episode. I think we covered a lot. Obviously, this episode was supposed to come out a little bit earlier, but with scheduling conflicts and all that, we pushed it back. Also, we had the All-Star break, so we weren't really necessarily in a rush to record right away. But I think that's going to do it, for this episode. So again, if you can follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Proud 18 and then at BSEN_617. I think our next episode will probably be, we normally space these out after about 4 or 5 games, depending on scheduling, obviously, with the Celtics. So we should be back by then. So Alex, you have any final thoughts?
Let's get the ball rolling. I'm ready to watch some Celtics basketball again. So, the games just keep coming. So excited to watch him. Let's keep picking up wins, continue good habits, knock on wood, no injuries, and go Celtics.
All right. We'll see you guys in the next one.